You didn't click this by accident. You were meant to see this. And if you're feeling restless, heavy, disconnected from everything and everyone, it's not confusion. It's a summons. Heaven has been whispering your name in silence through broken dreams, delayed promises, and the quiet ache you've been carrying for too long. You think you're behind, but what if you're exactly where the awakening begins? God isn't punishing you. He's positioning you. And this message is the one your spirit's been begging for, because heaven can't wait anymore. There's a moment in every chosen one's life when the silence becomes unbearable. Not because God has abandoned you, but because his presence is getting louder in ways the world can't interpret. You've been mistaking stillness for punishment, but what you're feeling isn't rejection, it's alignment. Everything that fell apart wasn't to break you, it was to make room. Room for this moment, room for this message, room for the version of you that no longer has to shrink just to survive. You were meant to hear this because something inside you has outgrown the noise, the lies, the cycles, and heaven is no longer waiting for you to feel ready. Heaven is moving now. You've been sensing it, haven't you? That eerie weight in your chest, the feeling that something's coming, something divine, something massive, and yet you still question if you're worthy of it. That's the trap. That's the doubt seeded in you by a world that profits from your silence, your exhaustion, your delay. But God doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be open. And right now, in this very moment, you are being pulled, not by logic, not by fear, but by destiny. There's a reason your hands are trembling. There's a reason you can't seem to look away from this screen. Your spirit recognizes the voice beyond the voice. The ones who are called don't usually feel qualified. They feel broken, tired, misunderstood, and yet they're the ones who can't stop dreaming. You've carried visions in your soul that made no sense to anyone around you. You've heard things no one believed, felt things too deep to explain. That's not delusion, that's design. You've been called to operate outside of what is familiar, to disrupt what is comfortable, and to embody what is divine. And now that calling is echoing again, louder, sharper, closer, because the window is open and heaven is done waiting. There is something you carry that this world is starving for, but that thing, it can't be activated until you stop delaying yourself in the name of false humility. Your silence has cost you too much. Your doubt has buried too many seeds. And God is saying, no more. No more hiding. No more shrinking. No more telling yourself you're not ready when the only thing that's truly unready is your comfort zone. This video isn't just a message. It's a portal, a mirror, a divine interruption. And if your hands are sweating and your heart is racing, it's because you're standing at the edge of the assignment that's been chasing you your entire life. You were always going to get here. Even if you crawled, even if you stumbled through every closed door and every broken relationship, even if you forgot your worth for a season, God didn't. And now, heaven is reintroducing you to the version of yourself that doesn't need approval to breathe, doesn't need applause to move, and doesn't need permission to shine. You thought the silence meant God forgot you. But silence is where heaven trains its sharpest voices. While the world kept asking why you disappeared, God was removing every sound that wasn't him. Every distraction, every detour, every person who was addicted to your old version, he stripped it. Because you can't carry divine instruction in hands full of validation. This is why it's felt so lonely. This is why your prayers went unanswered in public but echoed in dreams at 3 a.m. You weren't being ignored. You were being sharpened. And the sharpening never happens under lights. It happens in the dark, when no one's clapping, when all you have is your breath and the whisper of something holy pressing into your ribs like a reminder you can't explain. That ache? It wasn't anxiety. It was the weight of what you were born to carry waking up. See, what you thought was isolation was consecration. God was setting you apart, not punishing you, but positioning you. That's why people left. That's why the door slammed. That's why you cried over losses you didn't deserve. Because everything that was removed couldn't survive the version of you heaven is about to release. You don't need closure from what God canceled. You need courage to stand in what He's revealing. And this is what heaven needs you to understand. You weren't being prepared for comfort. You were being prepared for collision. A collision with your calling, with divine timing, with the version of you that doesn't settle, doesn't chase, and doesn't explain her glow anymore. You were built for this moment, but it had to be lonely first. Because when God raises you publicly, He'll make sure your foundation can't be shaken by shadows from your past. You're not watching this because you're weak. You're watching this because you're waking up. The silence didn't break you. It initiated you. And now, it's time to rise, not as who you used to be, but as the one heaven refused to stop calling. They didn't understand you, because they never expected the answer to walk in wearing scars and silence instead of titles and noise. You weren't sent to be relatable. You were sent to be undeniable. And that terrified the spaces that only knew how to worship appearance. Because when you showed up, they didn't just meet a person, they met a mirror that didn't reflect their filters, but their fractures. That's why the room shifted when you entered, why the energy got quiet, why people who laughed suddenly couldn't make eye contact. It wasn't intimidation, it was recognition. Their spirit recognized the truth walking in with you. You don't speak to impress. You don't move to be seen. And yet your presence rearranges atmospheres, because your very being exposes what's been hidden in everyone else. You were never supposed to fit. You were supposed to interrupt. You were supposed to stop the performance mid-stage, to collapse the applause that's been covering rot, and make people question why they're still pretending. That's what divine presence does. It doesn't flirt. It confronts. It convicts. It cuts through the noise and slices down to the soul. That's why they called you too intense. That's why they kept asking, what is it about them? It's not you. It's the truth in you, and not everyone's ready to survive it. See, chosen ones are misunderstood because they weren't sent to answer the questions people are asking. They were sent to answer the questions people have been avoiding. You weren't assigned to please. You were assigned to pierce, to expose what's real, to shake what's settled, to stir what's sleeping. And that level of clarity, it offends people committed to confusion. You weren't born to be palatable. You were born to be prophetic. So stop apologizing for how your presence disrupts shallow things. You are not chaos. You are clarity in a world that learned to call dysfunction normal. You're not meant to be understood by everyone. You're meant to awaken the ones who are finally ready to stop sleeping through their calling. And if they walked away, it's because their comfort couldn't survive your truth. You've been asking why they left, why they couldn't stay, why every connection that felt divine collapsed under pressure. But here's the part they'll never say out loud. You made them see themselves. And that's the kind of intimacy most people aren't ready for. You weren't too much. You were just too honest for their illusion. And when someone's built their identity on survival, on pretending, on wearing masks just to be loved, your presence becomes a threat, not a blessing. Because loving you meant losing every false version of themselves. And for them, that felt like death. That's why they pulled away even while still watching you. That's why they talked about you. Not out of hatred, but out of confusion. Your silence convicted them more than your words ever could. And when they replay your conversations in their mind, it's not because you were dramatic. It's because something in your tone cracked their shell. You weren't trying to fix them. You were just being. But your being carried too much truth for their lies to stay intact. You were a shift, a spiritual turning point, a divine checkpoint. And once people pass through you, they don't walk away untouched. They walk away restructured. Even if they run, even if they ghost you, even if they pretend you didn't matter, they know, their spirit knows, that your presence altered something in them they can't unsee, can't undo, can't unfeel. And now, the space you once filled feels heavier than your presence ever did. Because it's not just your voice they miss, it's the clarity that followed it. It's the safety their spirit felt, even when their mind resisted. They thought you were an encounter, but you were a revelation, and revelations don't disappear. They haunt, they linger, they echo through the hollow places left behind. You've been waiting for a sign, something loud, something undeniable. But chosen ones don't get fireworks. They get quiet instructions, inconvenient timings, and messages disguised as interruptions. This isn't just a video. It's the confirmation your spirit has been craving and your fear's been trying to outrun. Because deep down you know, you've always known, that what you carry was never meant to be silenced. That your presence isn't a coincidence. It's a collision, a divine intersection that alters everything around you. And now that you've awakened to that truth, you can't go back. You can't unsee who you are. You can't pretend you're small when your soul keeps stretching against your comfort. They didn't break you. The silence didn't destroy you. Even the abandonment couldn't erase your assignment. And now that you've walked through the valley, now that you've survived what was sent to end you, you're not just breathing, you're burning, refined, ready, undeniable. So this is the moment, not someday, not when you feel more qualified, not when they finally understand you. Now, because heaven isn't waiting, heaven is moving. And if you're watching this, it's because you're part of that movement. If this message found you, it's because it was written with your name on it. Don't just feel this, follow it. Comment below what awakened inside you. Share this with someone who's been in silence too long. And if your spirit knows this isn't the last time you'll need a message like this, subscribe. Because here, you're not crazy, you're not too much, and you're definitely not alone. This is Mind Sift, and this is just the beginning.